Well, Spurgeon was creating such a storm in this little town called Waterbeach, again, very rural, very out of the way, very far away, that the church in London, which at that time was called the New Park Street Chapel, had caught wind of this young, firebrand, evangelistic, zealous Baptist preacher. They invited him to come preach a sermon when he was barely just in his 17th year of age. He went along and he preached. The story is he got to London. He was wearing a suit of clothes that his mother stitched for him. He had his very country buncombe accent, and everyone in London just made fun of him. And this particular church, the New Park Street Chapel, if you know your Baptist history, was pastored by Benjamin Keach. He wrote the Baptist Catechism. He wrote the Baptist Confession. John Gill wrote the Bodies of Divinity that now are seen as tomes of theological robustness and weight. And Spurgeon's now in their pulpit as a kid. And he preaches, and they like him, and they issue him an invitation. Come and be the pastor of our church here in London. Now, the church at that point was declining fairly rapidly. They hadn't had a pastor in a long time. They had gone from a few thousand. They were ostensibly a mega church as far as membership and attendees were concerned, down to a very small 100 to 200. And Spurgeon begins to preach, and the crowds begin to flock. And this time it's London crowds, which means it's 5, 6, 7,000 people in a building that barely could seat maybe 1,100 if you crammed them in and forgot that safety code even existed. You could probably get about 1,100 in there. And Spurgeon, month after month, preaches the gospel, and the saying gets a bit overused, but he stopped the traffic in London. It was the power of God upon his life. They needed a new venue. The story is that Spurgeon got so frustrated with his deacons because they wouldn't initiate a building project to expand the building. One Sunday morning, halfway through a sermon, he turned around to the big wall behind the pulpit and he cried out, "By faith the walls of Jericho fell. By my faith so will this wall." And he turned back around and kept preaching. That's one way to motivate your deacons, right? You're kind of calling their bluff now, right? If the wall doesn't fall, it's you against God. It's nothing to do with me anymore. I declared it. And so they initiated a building project. And Spurgeon then booked out Exeter Hall, a large entertainment facility right in the middle of London.